Today on the Tom Kelly Show podcast, 53-year-old single women are just as crazy as 23 and 33-year-old single women. Plus, should all people come with warning labels? And other random thoughts as I bike around Portland, Maine. Let's start the show.
The Tom Kelly Show. Everybody, I want you to go to the Tom Kelly Show. I want you all to know about the Tom Kelly Show.
Trigger warning, spoiler alert. Good God, people, don't podcast when you're angry. You are experiencing a episode of the Tom Kelly Show. I am going to video blog this today. I'm just going to slowly drop out morsels of wisdom as they occur to me throughout the day. It is my last full day here in Higgins Beach. You know you're on your vacation a little too long when you start thinking about all the other places you should be biking. So I'm going to go for a bike ride on the eastern end of Portland. I'll tell you the full story later, or maybe I won't. I recorded a podcast with a very unhappy thing. I had an unhappy lesson in life. The wisdom was I met somebody up here. I don't want to get too into it, but the moral of the story was women in their 50s are just as dramatic and annoying as women in their 20s. And the speed through, and then the other lesson we'll talk about later is, should you taint your happy place? Should you, which sounds dirty, doesn't it? And then the really dirty joke is your happy place your taint? But you know what? I put an explicit warning on the podcast. You can handle that. But long story short, I met somebody who didn't tell me she had a boyfriend. And I met her actually while in that parking spot, that empty parking spot right there. She had a Jeep just like mine, and she was parked there. I went over, said hi, started with Jeep talk, and she turned out to be an amazing person, and she is an amazing person, except that she didn't tell me she had a boyfriend. And she was probably my pandemic dream girl, a lawyer turned fitness trainer turned real estate appraiser type. And then through a series of threes company-like miscommunications, somebody she knew somebody I knew by checking me out on Instagram. And long story short, one of her friends checked a friend of mine, Dave Stewart at CBS FM, a work friend, a radio friend. Hey, is Tom Kelly a good guy? My friend Dave is like, hey man, I put in a good word for you, just letting you know. I'm like, thanks man, that's good to hear. And again, some of this may also be hearing tones of voice you want to hear. But then we went out on a last minute get together at the nearby bar to Higgins Beach Inn. And probably towards the end of it, she goes, oh, and I've been seeing somebody. And I'm like, here's my thing about people, man. If you're a heterosexual woman going out with a heterosexual guy, before you go out, you casually drop somehow in a complete sentence, I have a boyfriend. And I blatantly told the girl that, hey, what if I was trying to pick you up? What's your Instagram? That was the sentence. I mean, never have I been more clear that I'm asking you out to ask you out with her. Anyway, blah, blah, blah. You know me, people. I get angry. Anyway, she says, oh, but we can be just friends. And, she's sending me all these friend texts. And I'm like, you know what? Honestly, my friends are honest. My friends don't hurt my feelings. They tell me when something blah, blah, blah happens. And honestly, she knew. No, what am I out? I mean, and again, if you're straight, you're a straight man, you're going out with a straight woman, you blur it out if you have a husband or wife. Yeah, you blur it out if you have a significant other. If you're gay and you're going out with another person of the same sex, you blur it out just in case, just to make sure there's no misunderstandings. You casually drop, oh, I just got to check to make sure if it's okay with my boyfriend. Now, bisexual people, I don't know what you do. I think you just, listen, if you have a significant other, if you have somebody who matters to you, you casually drop it so that way you kill expectations. But anyway, God bless. The woman drives past and pulls into the driveway while I'm sitting on the porch. Not even on the porch, on the lawn. Okay, and again, this is where you go into don't taint your happy place. She pulls in the driveway and she's like, why are you so angry? Why did you have all these false expectations? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, and I'm trying not to yell because there's people who know me here and I don't want to yell. I don't want to ruin my happy vibe. But anyway, her Jeep is right where my Jeep is. And then all of a sudden I'm standing outside. I'm standing outside the Jeep, right? I'm standing outside the Jeep. And then you hear, and I'm like, did it look like I just punched her car? And then I looked down. What happened was a seagull dropped a full crab. I don't know if you guys can see it. Can you see it? There it is. The seagull dropped a full crab and it bounced off her car. And if and you want to get into it, people, if you ever wanted a sign from God, and there it came, it was a sign from God. Tom, stop arguing. Tom, stop arguing. Let it go. And the other one is, as I've been walking the beach over there, right? As I've been walking the beach, I have been praying to God for answers. And I'll tell you what actually upset me about the woman was, she told me she had the boyfriend, and then like a day later, she's like, hey, why don't you come out and you can meet my 21-year-old son? And I saw her on the beach with a guy who was tall, blah, 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 and all that. And I'm like, oh, that must be her son. And then I got close and I'm like, oh, that's the boyfriend. She tainted my beach walk. But here's the thing, and there's the ocean. But here's the thing, I've been walking around praying for answers from God. And, one of the questions is, years ago when I was a kid, before I did The View, I'm a 27-year-old guy. My first trip down to Weeki Wachee, Florida. I dated a girl named whatever her name was down there. Let's skip that part. But I actually loved her. And she loved me when I was poor and whatnot. And she had a line, Tom, why do you have to be a comedian? Why can't you just sell used cars and live down here? And there's always part of me that just said, man, what if I did want a simpler life? Bike rides, beaches. It's a big part of me. New York is soul-sucking at times, or I just don't feel like it's right. I don't feel like it's me anymore. And, so anyway, when I saw that woman in that empty parking spot that's right here, part of me saw, wow, what could post-pandemic Tom do? And even too, and again, this is where now I'm the bad guy for a minute. My friend Bill Russell, from when I was a kid, he was a summer camp counselor when I went to Camp Horizon. He always said, Tom, if you do what you love, you'll meet the right person while you're doing it. And then my shrink, my new shrink, repeated that same advice to me just a little bit ago. And, and there's that moment of, oh my God, there I am. I'm on my porch. There's the parking spot. It just felt right. Oh, and there we go. Oh my God, it's my friend. Oh my God, this is my friend Emily. You're on the podcast. Wave. There we go. You're buying your first car, right?
I just got it. Getting the keys today.
All right, she's buying a Prius, people. Get the hell out of here. She's buying a Prius. It's going to be very weird that she pops into the middle of that conversation. How about that? And then when you get into other signs from God, how about that? Stop whining. Stop whining for a minute. So here's what we're going to do, people. I'm going to do some of the things I love. The sun, of course, is going to come out at the beach just when I'm leaving the beach. But let's go take a little bike ride in Portland, and I'm going to just share wisdom as it occurs to me. And one piece of wisdom is, when God gives you a sign, don't get mad if the sign is not the sign you want. When you pray to God for answers, don't get mad when God gives you an answer that you don't want. So I just parked the Jeep in Fort Allen Park, Portland. And before I start my bike ride, I wanted to give a couple of quick thank yous. Thank you to Dan Stanton. Thank you to Karen Ruiz. And thank you to Marianne Stell Magic, who listened to an earlier draft of whatever number episode this is, 304, whatever the heck it is. I did an angry version of the podcast with the story I just told. And they each, in their own way, kind of reminded me that I like being happy, man. I like telling happy stories. I want this podcast to be real but uplifting where possible. And there you go. So thank you for that reminder. In the realm of trying to fit all the aspects of Tom Kelly together, I had a great Instagram caption. By the way, thank you to everybody in the Secret Tom Kelly Show fan group who wished me a happy birthday. And the Instagram status covered that, which was, my birthday was perfect. I had a great dinner with my friend Chris Delenick. I had the right phone calls came in the right order. My mom always calls me at 12:12, the minute of my birth, on my birthday. Were there digital clocks in the hospital in the 1970s? I don't know, but somebody wrote down 12:12, and that's how we know that happened. And that's how that tradition started. And the wisdom in my Instagram status was, my life is a bunch of puzzle pieces that don't quite fit together, and I'm trying to figure out how to put the puzzle together. Or am I just supposed to enjoy each beautiful piece as its own piece of art? Talking about puzzles, I flew from Portland back to New York to go sub in at my old job at The View, and it was fantastic. It was a nice day, a weird day. I gave up weather like this to go fly to New York City during the orange cloud of smoke. And all I can say is, if you're outside the New York area, you don't believe how bad it was, the orange smoke, until you flew into the New York area. It really was as bad as the media was telling you. It smelled like my grandma's house after grandma's house burned down. So yeah, it was not a healthy smell. So being funny for a minute, or being crazy, had a great day. Everybody was nice. So good to see everybody. It was like going to your high school reunion. It was perfect. That said, the airport, Portland Airport, fascinating space, people. My flight was delayed because of the smoke. And then while you're sitting there waiting at the airport, you realize one of the activities at the Portland Airport, which is essentially the size of a small mall. It's actually probably half the size of the small mall in your town. By the way, isn't that a fun word to say? Small mall. And they have a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle sitting there in the lobby of the airport, in the terminal. And I'm like, who the hell is gonna sit there and put together a 1,000-piece puzzle at an airport? And all I know for sure is if I flew out on Wednesday and then flew back again Friday afternoon, more of that 1,000-piece puzzle was completed than had been before. So who the hell is in the airport putting together puzzles? Let me know. What do you say we try some of this bike ride? So I'm at the top of a hill right now, heart rate at 150. I'm at 5 miles on the bike ride. I'm underneath. You really can't see it, but it's the time and temperature building. Why do they call it the time and temperature building? Because it has a sign that tells the time and the temperature. Imagine that, a time and place where you needed a building to know what time it was and what the temperature was outside. In addition to labels about whether or not you're in a relationship, I think people need disclaimers when you meet them. Like you're at the end of a drug commercial. Tom Kelly may cause headaches, mild frustration, disappointment in the bedroom, and anger issues if he finds out you didn't tell him you had a boyfriend. We'll work on that. We'll work on that. But that will be an attempt at a stand-up joke at a later date. So right behind me is the narrow gauge railroad. You really can't tell on video, and you definitely can't tell on audio. It's like half the width of a normal rail track. And they're about to go on a touristy ride And right behind me is the caboose, which is the back of a train. So whenever somebody says, hey, we got a nice caboose on that one, that's what they're talking about. I love the word caboose. It's just a fun word. Caboose. Sounds like moose, but you're talking about the back of a train or a butt. So the Maine narrow gauge train is running down the tracks, and two girls almost got hit by a train going 10 miles an hour. This is where I need to rig this bike so that there's a camera in front of it all the time. Or maybe I have to wear one of those like zoom camera helmets behind me. Like, look, how are you almost getting hit by a train going 15 miles, not even 15, like 6 miles an hour? Oh my gosh, people, we are then again, I'm riding a bike using a selfie cam running over Canadian tourists. So what do I know? So it's such a weird 10-mile loop that I have done. Actually, it's not even 10. It'll be like a 5 to 8 mile loop. And then I'll just pack on the miles at the end going back and forth. But so far I have seen the beautiful streets of Portland. I've seen gorgeous nature trails. I saw a man openly vandalizing the side of a water sanitation plant. Lots of tourists. Where you from, tourists? New York. Oh, they're where I'm from. I could have just stayed home and met him. I want to add a piece of wisdom I had about dating 53-year-old women. The wisdom was 53-year-old women are as dramatic as 20-year-old women. And how do I know this? If 53-year-old weren't dramatic, there would be no Real Housewives. Wah, wah. God, I'm going to get someone killed biking like this. All right, so what did we learn from today's podcast? 53-year-old women are just as dramatic as 20-year-old women. We've learned that Tom believes every person should disclose if they're in a relationship within the first 3 minutes of meeting. And it should be done so casually so it does not feel like you're doing it. Tom believes people need warning labels. That will be a stand-up bit later. And then, most importantly, Tom believes the podcast should be happy. Let's do some magic mirror time quick. I see Fred the Mailman. Thank you for sharing the podcast all the time on Instagram. That is noted. My friend Diana in Canada. I know you're going through some rough stuff with your whole state burning down. And this is the place to end the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. Right here on the rails of the narrow gauge railroad. Folks, if we hang on to the podcast long enough, I will almost get killed by a train. But we agreed we don't want to do that, folks, because if there's anything about Tom Kelly, star of the Tom Kelly Show podcast, it's that I am a role model. So, from the eastern end of Portland, Maine, ladies and gentlemen, I say, good night, Portland.